I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest today is Jaguar Wright. Jaguar is an
Hello.
American R&B soul, neo-soul singer, songwriter, advocate, and renowned for her powerful vocals and candid commentary on the music industry. Born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Wright emerged from the city's vibrant music scene in the late 1990s. She gained prominence through collaborations with The Roots, contributing to their live performances and recordings. Her dynamic stage presence led to opportunities such as performing alongside Jay-Z during his 2001 MTV Unplugged session. Wright's debut album, Denials, Delusions, and Decisions, was released in 2002, showcasing her rich voice and honest lyrics. She is an extraordinary woman. Beyond her musical contributions, Wright is a vocal advocate for ethical practices within the entertainment industry. She is in the process of launching a nonprofit organization, Cruelty Free Artistry, dedicated to seeking justice for victims of sex crimes and human trafficking and promoting integrity and respect in creative fields. Recently, she became the recipient of the Defender of Freedom Award from America's Future 2025 by retired General Mike Flynn. Jaguar, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
That sounds awesome. Everything that's like I sometimes I forget everything that I do. And so it's nice to hear it spoken so eloquently. Thank you.
Well, I'm so honored. I'm so honored that you're here, and I must share with our listeners that this is our first introduction, and I'm
Mhm.
particularly excited about that. I had the great privilege of meeting your producer in between one of my shows, and he said,
Mhm.
"Hey, would you guys like Jaguar Wright?" I said, "Are you kidding? Of course." I said, "Of course we would," and I'm welcoming you to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thank you to Wolfgang Amadeus because he is the producer extraordinaire. And I always make a bad joke. I always talk about my girlfriend Michelle A, and she used to tell me, Jag, if you want to have it all and you want to have the great records and all, you gotta get with the producer. And you know what? After all of these years, I finally took her. I've never been happier.
In this our first segment where we have about two and a half, about 4 minutes left. Share with us what you want the world to know about Jaguar Wright, not what they perceive, not what they see. Share with us your passion, who you are.
I'm a child of God.
Amen.
God delivered me from the devil's mouth
Mm,
in exchange for one reason and one purpose to take from the devil and give to who is good and most deserving, and to make sure that God is always seen, no matter how busy the devil is working. He is always seen. He is always there. He is always in the room. And I've just tried to create my life to be a representation of the fact that what I'm doing is not on my behalf. I'm doing what God has called me to do. And considering your very rich legacy, I think you know exactly what I mean.
I certainly do. So it's really interesting that you see your work as a ministry, not
Well,
just.
I don't like using that word
I don't
because
either. I don't either,
it's a
even though I'm a
dirty
seminary
word. Dirty word.
teacher. But it's a calling.
Well, I
It's
mean, ministry is literally just right across the street from a cult. I've
okay.
been called both.
So the world is in a very, very interesting place. There's this great
Mhm,
struggle. There's this great debate over what is
mhm.
real, what is not real, what constitutes the truth, how you process the truth, and obviously you have a courage that is unusual. That is speaking truth to power, to very,
Mhm.
very powerful people. Share with us how you process that truth and the source of that truth. I think you've shared it when you said God, but there's
It
more
starts
to it.
there.
There's more to it. I think that our listeners would love to hear.
It starts with God. But then there's this thing that I have that I started developing like really acutely. And it's called integrity. I'm an
Mm,
integral person. I believe that anything that lacks integrity will break down. Period. If there is a lack of integrity in it, whether it takes 5 years or 500 years, it's going to break down. And what we have to learn how to do in America is stop trying to create something new out of what we already know is there that's not working, that's not effective. And we have to level it out and create a new build. And we do that with integrity. And for me, with the calling that God has put on my heart and everything that I saw, it's so funny. I'm about to start working on my memoir for my life, and it's called God's Secret Shopper.
Mm.
And that's how I've always felt in my life. God has always put me in places where I shouldn't have been, where why is this happening in front of me? Why am I the person? But then I realized he did it so that I could come back to him and let him know what's going on in that shop so he can do the appropriate thing.
I'm
And
Jesse.
I like that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Jaguar Wright. When we come forward, we're going to dig deeper into the source of her power. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is none other than neo soul singer and songwriter and advocate, Jaguar Wright. Jaguar, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
A very hungry jaguar. How are you?
Welcome back. I was thinking about the source of your power, God. Um, you talked about integrity, but we also witness on a daily basis with extraordinary media platform that you have courage. And this is Women's History Month. We've seen
Mm,
African American women emerge not only through the Kamala Harris campaign, but quite
mhm,
frankly, from my political perspective, since Black women overwhelmingly voted for the sister in this race, they asserted themselves in a way that they've never really asserted themselves before. So it's in the ether. It's in the ether in
mm.
the Democratic Party. It's in the ether in the Republican Party. This courage that Black women have that has always been there. During this Black History Month, if you could speak to that courage for us, it would be, I'm sorry, Black History Month, Women's History Month. I would appreciate you speaking to that courage.
Well, for so many years, the patriarchy has fought very hard to keep the matriarchy in a respectable place.
Mm,
Last year there was a woman of faith, a minister, and a bunch of her fellow male pastors voted to have her taken down from the pulpit on her church because they didn't think that as a woman it sent a good message to
is this
have her
Ebony?
as a leader.
Is this Ebony Marshall Turman over at Abyssinian?
Mhm.
I'm very familiar with the story.
And no one really talked about that.
Mm,
Everyone just kind of let that go by. And, for your father to have been one of our greatest American inspirational leaders, because that's what he did, he inspired us. When I think about I have a dream, he wasn't just speaking for men, he wasn't
mm,
just he was speaking for all people, and even when we look at references in the Bible and it says he, what it really means is they. Women have so often been cut out of history
mm,
as an attache or as an added bonus. Nobody looks at the fact that in the Obama dynamic, it was Michelle who was
mm,
really the trailblazer that made it possible for her husband to walk through certain doors. And even now, with her leaving full on public life, people tend to forget the contribution that she made to
mm,
making that happen. But then again, and not just with Black women, would Bill Clinton have really been the president that he was or made it as far as he did
mm,
without Hillary?
mhm,
Hillary was really the political mind. Hillary was the political animal. Hillary came from the legacy. So I think in America, we have this saying behind every great man, right?
mhm,
There's a great woman, right?
mhm,
Why is she behind the man?
Good point.
Why?
Good point.
Why does she have to be behind the man? Why can't she be beside him?
Mm,
Because they are two halves of the same coin. And I
mm,
think what's happening now that the patriarchy side has become so dull and so convoluted, the side that
mm,
has been hidden has now become the one that is most pronounced. It's no different than any coin. The side that has had more action and more traction, it gets worn down. The side that's not particularly, it can look sometimes close to brand new. And
mm.
though women speaking out boldly seems like it's new, no, it's not. It's just a different side of the coin that is now being forced to the front. And I'm grateful for it.
Mm, and rightfully so. Let me share with you a little bit of my experience.
If any of that made any sense.
Of course it did. Of course it did. And the example that I was going to give, my mother was my special guest on the program this past Monday for Women's History Month. And for an hour and a half, she spent with me and with our listeners. She blew up social media because she offered an insight into how she met Jesse Jackson, right? And on college campus. And he was, of course, she said they had to walk essentially through a gauntlet in order to get to the canteen. And he was standing there, hey, and he turned to her and said, "You're going to marry me." And my mother turned to him and said, you better remember you made that promise. And that's how they met, right? But it's
Fabulous.
but it's my mother who met with President Yasser Arafat of the PLO, the whole Gaza West Bank issue. It's my mother who was with Anwar Sadat in Egypt just months before he was shot and killed. It's my mother who knew um, um, uh, the president of Libya who was killed. It's my mother who knew Fidel Castro, right? She was the international player behind Jesse Jackson. And so by the time Jesse Jackson is going around the world saving hostages and meeting people on the international scene, my mother had already been there. No fanfare, no press. He got all the press and all of the light, to your point. She wasn't behind him, she was beside him, and that which is convoluted on the front side has now
Mhm.
become the backside of the same coin. I really get it. I think that's really, really something profound that you said. Let me just share with you a little bit of my experience. When I
Sure.
um, when I went to prison, um, my family was falling apart, and I was in a lot of trouble mentally, emotionally. I mean, I'd fallen off of a big mountain, Congress, and I ended up in a valley. It's my mother who writes me a letter every day while I'm in prison. She
Mhm.
gives me strength. She gives me courage. And it was also her own form of therapy. And while in prison, because of my mother's strength, because she assumed the role of that strong maternal, if you will, matriarchal figure, she closed a gap for me that no man, not even my father, could provide emotionally. And I'm
There
really
is
grateful
something that a
grateful to God for that.
praying mother off when a praying mother
Mm,
goes to work,
mm, yeah, yeah,
everything, there's nothing that can stop. Nothing that can stop a praying mother.
yeah. I have this interesting question for you.
Hmm.
I now understand better from our initial conversation why you have decided, not in your ministry, but in your calling, in the structure of your being, that to
Yes.
bring forward um, the abuse issues that women face in the industry, and
Yes.
probably every industry, right?
Yeah.
But the one that you have said is the one that you are, I mean, the nation's champion of, is the silent abuse that has been taking place in our community. And without getting into that which is legal and already
Oh,
out there,
absolutely.
the question is about your courage and your strength. Why
Hmm.
did you decide this is what I have to do?
Well, I was forced to do something that your mother never had to do.
Mm,
I had to look at my son on a slab, ice cold,
mm,
not
mm,
breathing, lips buttoned
mm,
up tight.
mm,
And before it was time for us to put him in that furnace to collapse down what was left behind, after his spirit took flight.
Mm.
I was forced to deal with one thing. I was there at the beginning of this person's life. I am here at the end of this person's life. This person came from me. What
Mm.
did I do to make this happen?
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm sitting here
And
getting emotional about this. Wow. I didn't
I,
know that.
yeah, yeah. And my son refused a Rock Nation contract. And the
Mm.
young man that took his life, that was 6 years younger than him, was trying to get one.
Mm. Mm.
And I thought about every rap record that I worked on that promoted the culture that took my son's life. I thought about every concert I went to, all of the girls, when I turned my head, when I knew exactly what's going to happen to them, when they went into that hotel room and I was told to be quiet if I wanted to keep my spot. All of those compromising choices
Mm.
helped feed the furnace on the vanity bonfire that I
Mm.
had to put my son's body into.
Mm. Mm.
No more.
Well, I didn't want to, I did, blah, 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 blah. I just didn't know. And so I'm sorry that we even headed down
It's
that,
my
that.
testimony.
Mm.
It's my testimony.
Mm. Mm. My mother told me no test, no testimony. And I get it. I get it
It's
now
the
in ways.
root word. It's the
Mm-hmm.
root word in this thing. You gotta have a test
Mm-hmm.
to have a testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's where God lives, in the detail of that test. And the worse the test, the greater God is at the end. Because when God puts his hand on something, it goes down a road where it looked like there's no way it could have happened, ever could have happened. Not that person. This can't be. What are you talking about? And then God comes in.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
everybody's like, I love when God gets a work in.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I remind people all the time that when I was thrown in solitary confinement for three
Mm.
days for
I've
helping
been in
men.
the hole. I know exactly what you've been through.
A hole is a beast. I mean, you're talking about in your own
Mm.
head, and all you can do is listen to the Spirit, and God speaks to you in ways that you can't hear until you
Mm.
are in the hole. It's a deep kind of thing, but I came out a new person when
Oh,
I
yeah.
met God in that space. My ministry changed. My relationships changed. My relationship with my parents, with my siblings, with the world, my world outlook changed. And I came out determined more than ever to champion the idea that no one should ever find themselves in a hole, not like that.
Mm.
And there's an empathy that I developed for men who had been down that journey, and now obviously women who had been down that journey that I had never experienced before.
Look at how extraordinary that is. You know, people always say to me, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you've survived all of these things. I don't know how you made it. I don't know how you made it through this, that, and the third, and so on and so forth. And I tell them all the time, my life and my outlook has changed. I no longer see problems. I only acknowledge circumstances.
Mm,
My life, I've turned it into a puzzle. I love puzzles. And the best part about it is what fits, fits, what doesn't, doesn't. But when you get all of the pieces together, you finally get to see the whole picture. And
mm,
that's what my life and my work is,
mm,
putting little pieces of the puzzle together, section by section, seeing which ones link, which ones don't, so that I can finally show people the whole picture of why God made me.
mm, mm.
I tell
Jaguar,
people all the time, if you got a problem with me, then you better go to the manufacturer
mm,
because God made me.
gotta preach right there. Jaguar, let me ask you a question. Let me take a
Mhm.
turn to the Freedom Award. Obviously, because you stepped forward, we have 3 minutes before the break, and obviously we have two more
Sure.
segments. But when you received the Freedom Award, one, how did that make you feel? And share with us the context of how you came into the Freedom Award.
I can't even tell you. I Forrest Gump my way there. I promise you. I was playing ping pong, and the next thing you know, I was a national hero. I keep telling people I only came for the food and the swag.
Mm,
But the truth is up until just a couple days before, I didn't even know I was being honored. I was there to be a part of the effort and to stand with America's future because the president has made it very clear to General Flynn that as we call it, the teleporting of the little people and the big people, it has to stop.
mhm,
And if we
mhm,
got to grab them all up and get them down there to Gitmo,
mhm.
then that's just what we're going to do. And then my producer went back and read the email. He said, honey, and I said, what? He said, they're giving you an award. I said, who? He said, America's future. They're giving you an award. I said, they are. The Liz didn't tell me that because my friend Liz Crokin, um, God bless her, uh, she's the one that nominated me to be recognized by the
Mm,
organization. And
mm,
then come to find out that Mary Flynn, General Flynn's sister, she was a big fan of mine. I didn't even know.
mm,
And the reason why was because of all of my commentary that I did on the Blue Couch speaking out against Diddy. And the
mm.
reason why is because she has her own issue with Diddy. Her
Wow.
son was signed to one of Diddy's guys, D Mac, and went through many abuses. And then when D Mac and Diddy were done with him, they passed him off to Travis Barker, who went
Mm,
in even further on him. Now, he didn't pass like my son did, but both of our sons were affected. And she's been rooting me on in the backdrop all of this time because she wants Diddy and all of his friends gone no different than I do. When
mm,
when a Republican and someone raised a Democrat, both two mothers, see their children in pain and agony or lose their children, it creates a bond that nobody could possibly, that empathy that you were talking about
mm.
from the whole. It's the same thing with mothers.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, we'll be listening to unapologetically Jaguar Wright. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Jaguar Wright, American R&B and neo soul singer, songwriter, advocate, renowned for her powerful vocals, candid commentary on the music industry. Beyond her musical contributions, Wright is a vocal advocate for ethical practices within the entertainment industry. She's in the process of launching a nonprofit organization, Cruelty Free Artistry, dedicated to seeking justice for victims of sex crimes and human trafficking. We are learning a lot about Jaguar Wright today, and this is my first time meeting Jaguar. Jaguar, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I'm having a ball. It's good to just sit here with you. I'm learning a lot about you.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you're here. You know, I want to go back to Michael Flynn because I've got history
Mm,
there, right?
yeah.
Um, as you know, I was in the Congress of the United States for 17 years. Um, my family has been in social activism for a number of years,
Mhm.
and Michael Flynn's Freedom Award, as a historian, I have a law degree. I have written books on American and African American history. I think about freedom from white folks, right? Let me just
Mm.
get it real for a minute. I think about,
Mhm.
I saw a movie before Black History Month. I saw Roots one more time when Chicken George was talking on July 4th. He said, white folks, they show, Ben Lugosi Jr., they show celebrating their freedom. I'm so happy they free from them other white folks in Britain. Of course, he was a slave talking about their freedom. So there's this debate over freedom between white folks. Then
Absolutely.
there's slave, you know, matriarchy, patriarchy. But then in
Mhm.
our context versus master, both of us have a definition of freedom. We want to get off
Mhm.
the plantation. Their definition of freedom is we got the right to own you and you're our property, right? Then there's the Confederacy. We got the right to keep our slaves in our states, and the Union,
Mhm.
we think that you don't have that right. So, women believe, and I believe they should have control over their own bodies, but then some folk believe we got the right to tell you what to do with your body. I mean, so this debate over freedom
Mhm.
is ongoing debate that has taken place. And I found this interesting quote by Abraham Lincoln. I just want to read it to you. He says, "We all declare for liberty, but in using the same word, we do not mean the same thing.
Mhm.
With some, the word liberty may mean for each man to do as he pleases with himself and the product of his labor, while others, the same word may mean for some to do with other men or women as they choose to do with other men or women and the
Mhm.
product of their labor."
Mhm.
He says, "Here are two not only different but incompatible things called by the same name, liberty, and it follows that each of these things is by the respective parties called two different names and incompatible names, liberty and tyranny." Now, again, I told
Mhm.
you I have a little bit of history with Michael Flynn, right?
Mhm.
He says, I'm giving Jaguar Wright the Freedom Award.
Mhm.
I'm saying to myself, is this freedom to be free? Or is this freedom under this definition? And by that, I mean General C.Q. Brown, for example, was the chairman of the
Mhm.
Joint Chiefs of Staff 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He ain't never done nothing wrong but be a good soldier. Got more stars on his shoulder than anybody on earth, right?
Mhm.
Then they replaced him with this white guy. The brother didn't do nothing
Mhm.
wrong. Replaced him as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He got 4 stars on his, but he said to Donald Trump, the white guy said to Donald Trump, "I'll kill anybody for you, man. I'll kill anybody for you." Well, the brother never said that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out the definition of freedom that we should embrace, Jaguar, and how you interpret freedom. Because when I listen to you on social media and on programs, I want to say to myself, that sister right there is speaking for me. I really want to say that. But I need to know if your definition of freedom is the definition that fits our freedom struggle. That's the
Well,
best way to say it.
let me start by quoting my fellow Tarian patriarch when it comes to keeping it straight talk. Malcolm X,
Mm,
the only true freedom is death.
mm. That sounds like a "Give Me Liberty" or "Give Me Death" by Patrick Henry.
Yeah. Or 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, get rich or die trying.
Mm,
The
mm,
same thing. It's
You
the
know what?
same principle.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
I'm not
mm,
trying to do either. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I don't think anybody can give me the kind of freedom that I want. But the issue is when we use the word freedom, what are we getting free from? I think a lot of people have a problem with the moniker "Make America Great Again."
mm,
And I can understand why, because it's very clever, just like the Barack Obama hope, the audacity of hope, when he used that phrase. Both of them are incorrect if you look at them integrally. And I'm an artist and a writer, and I'm a confirmed and published writer. So I take words very seriously.
mm,
And when I think of the audacity of hope and then make America great again, they're both false.
mm.
Because in order to make something great again, it would have had to have been great to begin with. And America has been struggling with what greatness actually is
I like
since
that.
its inception.
Hmm. I
There's
like that.
no way to make something that never was until we get the history books correct about what happened to the natives, until we stop celebrating buffoons for national holidays for getting lost and calling an entire indigenous people something that they weren't, until we deal with
Mm,
the simple fact that we have the First Amendment, which is supposed to be freedom of speech, and yet there's more fake news and censorship in America than there was in Cold War Russia when Gorbachev was going crazy, listening to everybody's phone calls. America had a problem. The wall came down, and then the next thing you know, we got the Patriot Act, and we're doing the same thing. I can
mm,
speak about a lot of things that
mm,
don't speak to what it is that we're actually supposed to be attaining.
I think that's
If
very
you
honest. I think that's
Yeah,
very
and
honest. And the
you
reason I
know
want to
the
say so, I know that
yeah.
I'm coming up on a little commercial break right here. I want to say
Oh,
that that's very
sorry.
honest because "Make America Great Again" is it assumes that it was great at one point in time, and then on the other hand, on the Obama side of it, we had this 8 years, this moment that somehow America had overcome her problems, but she did not overcome her problems just because he was elected. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jaguar Wright on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm really excited that she's my guest. We have one more segment. I look forward to talking with her. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
Oh,
Welcome
that's
forward
my song.
to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm so glad you're back. Our very special guest is none other than Jaguar Wright. Beyond her musical contributions, Wright is a vocal advocate for ethical practices within the entertainment industry. Jaguar, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to have you. Hold on a second. Let me get these windows rolled up because this microphone picks up everything on this headset. It's fabulous.
I'm glad you're with us. I love your integrity. I love the fact that you're not afraid of the truth. Um, are you afraid? I mean, the attacks on your character, the attacks on your personhood, are
The
there
attacks on my
times,
life.
yeah, the attacks on your life? Are you afraid?
I stopped that a long time ago.
Mm,
You could probably understand my response, and it will be a scripture. Matthew 6. Verily I say unto you, do not worry about your life.
mm,
Don't worry about what you shall eat or what you shall drink or what you shall. You're aware because your Father in heaven knows all. The pagans, they run after these things, but seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. All of God's righteousness and everything that you have and you need shall be yours, including safety.
mm. Well, she says she's not a minister. She said she doesn't preach, but I know she knows the Bible. She knows the Bible like that. So all y'all ministers out here, when Jaguar comes for you, she ain't just talking. She done read the book too. Now let me
A
ask
few times in the hole, too.
you. Oh yeah, that moment where the book really makes a lot of sense. Been there, done that. Hey, Jaguar, let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
When you think about where everything is going, offer for our listeners some hope that there's some way that there's a way out of this mess. And I know both of us are a long way from the hole. So everything is the upside of life when you come out of that
God,
pit.
God, that is all there is. The one thing that I learned coming out of a pit is that there's nothing but God.
Mm,
Nothing. All of this, everything that we see, everything around us, the people that we talk to, nothing is real unless God is there. And
mm,
that's really what I want to tell people. Like, sometimes, I'm on my YouTube channel and I'm talking to my audience, and I'll just stop for a second and I'll say, all of these things we talk about, all of these things that we're concerned about, put a one in the chat. If your problems are bigger than God, put a two in the chat if you know that God is bigger than your problems.
mm,
And I just let the twos go. And then I say, Ashe, let it be so.
mm,
Know that.
mm.
And
How do
when
you
you live there, there's no fear.
mm, mm. I also want to thank your producer for trusting me with you for an hour, which is I don't trust myself on a lot of folks' shows. And for our listeners, this is my first opportunity to meet Jasmine Wright. I want her to be very comfortable on our show and know that she is welcome back anytime. Jasmine, I don't want to violate any of your confidences, but just before the break, before you began the show, you were sharing that you're working on a very special project that really came into existence within the last week or so because of
Yeah.
unforeseen circumstances. Would you like to share it with our listeners?
One of our greatest musical and artistic matriarchs took her flight on Saturday. Exactly when, no one knows because the reports are not reporting. But our beloved Angie Stone, our B. Angie B from Sequence, our Angie Stone from Vertical Hold, the woman who was the force and the pen and the mind behind the D'Angelo Brown Sugar album, which is undoubtedly one of the greatest neo soul masterpieces of all time. We lost her,
Mm,
and I am writing a tribute to her life and everything that I learned from her and
Mm,
everything that we all benefited from her. Neo soul, everyone wants to be the queen of this or the queen of that. But if it wasn't for Angie B, there would be no neo soul.
mm, How special was she, Jaguar?
Amazing. Really amazing. I've been thinking about that last show that me, her, and Lettucey did together in Atlantic City, New Jersey, at the Showboat Hotel, early 2000s. And a snowstorm was coming, and they were talking about whether or not we wanted to reschedule, cancel. What Angie said, I know my people are coming. God's gonna make sure my people get here. And she went to Lettucey, and she said, Lettucey, you in? And she said, if you in, I'm in. And she said, let me go get Jag. She said, Jag, you performing? I said, one monkey don't stop the show. She said, well, then let's go. We got a show. We got people to get ready for. They on the way, baby.
That's so beautiful.
And even though we had almost sold out the entire show, I think we had missed like 5 tickets or something to sold out. 2/3 of that audience still came in a snowstorm to see
Mm,
Jaguar Wright, Lettucey, and Angie Stone.
mm,
Really
mm,
triumphant night. And I'll never forget the grace that she showed at the end of the night when the promoter wanted to play around with the money.
mm,
And Angie, myself, and Lettucey all took pay cuts that night to make sure that our band and our staff got paid.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And
wow.
she looked at me and said, "That's the that's the cost you got to pay to be the boss.
Mm, mm,
You got to be willing to make sure everybody else gets paid, even if you don't." And that's just the kind of performer she was. That's the kind of boss she was. That's the kind of comrade she was. Meanwhile, she's sitting there still with the energy of one of us newbies coming up underneath her, the same zeal, the same vigor. And she taught me a lot. Hold on to the childlike aspirations, but
mm,
grow up fast and know how to protect yourself.
mm,
The simple fact that she started finally speaking out about who started robbing her and how long they've been doing it. And that she said she was going to go to get her money, and now she's gone 3 months later under duplicitous means. We have to do more. So I'm in the studio. I'm finishing it up tonight. I can't wait for everyone to hear it. You'll be able to contact my producer and get yourself an early listen if you'd like.
Oh, I'd love
And
to.
yes, she's our special lady,
Jaguar, let me
and we're
ask you a
going to set
question.
the bar.
We
Mhm.
keep we keep hearing this same story over and over and over again, from Sam Cooke starting his own label to to the East Coast versus the West Coast and who controls people's rights, all that's going on. I mean, why do we keep hearing the same stories from Prince to Angie?
Michael Jackson,
Why? Why?
Nipsey Hussle.
Why? Why? I mean, is there a way out of how we're being hustled in the industry? We have about 3 minutes before our
You
show
see
is.
that picture?
That's Cat. Oh, well, that's Cash Patel. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be my way.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Okay. That- well, that right
I
there
got
on
a diss
Talking
track.
Industry.
I,
Wow.
I got a diss track coming. I got a diss track coming, and I'm writing it for everybody who's still lying about them freak offs. It's called Get Low or Get Mo.
Oh, wow.
I
She's
can't wait for everybody to hear it. Yes.
She is Jaguar Wright, and she is unapologetically herself. And for those of you who can't see the image on YouTube, you need to download the program and share it. Her screensaver, or the green screen behind her, is none other than Cash Patel. Uh, looks like with an American flag and his eyes wide
Oh
open,
yeah.
like
Oh
I'm
yeah.
looking for a problem to solve.
Ooh, somebody put too much chili powder in the curry. Cash is coming, baby. I told him I'm about to start me a whole new record label. I'm going to call it Cash Money Patel Records. Yes. Lockdown Records. Yes.
Jaguar, thank you for joining me on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Oh, absolutely. And do me a favor, tell your mother I said thank you.
I promise I will. I promise I
Thank
will.
you
And
for
I'll tell the
everything
Reverend.
that she's done.
Mm,
And your father as well. But I mean, considering it's Women's Month and we're talking about the matriarchy, I figured I'd start with her. Send my regards to your father, but more importantly, thank you. Thank
yes,
you
I
for
will pass it
being
on.
you.
Jaguar, thank you for being on our show. Look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. Bye.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. What a special guest for Women's History Month. Jaguar Wright, an insight into her personality, an insight into her spirit, an insight into who she is as a human being. I don't think TikTok does her justice. I don't think all of these little snippets of reflective Jaguar Wright discussing this or discussing that, none of which I have knowledge of or an understanding of, but she clearly does. Um, she's a real person, a woman of faith, and she's been our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.